Again, this is Rick Gurgitz. We're working our way through our product update presentations this year. This one, of course, is for sprayers and seeding. With me today, I have Alan Compton, who will be presenting the sprayer information, and also helping with Ernie Thompson out of the THD group for sprayers. And then as we move on to the seeding group, John Volley will be presenting that information. And again, feel free to use the Q&A box as we're going through. We will stop periodically and take care of questions as we're going through this. And then also, again, these are being recorded and posted to the Tech Knowledge section within the dealer portal. So you have people that can view this later times during the year if they weren't able to watch it today. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Alan, and we'll get started on the sprayer portion.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This particular webinar is going to deal with the concerns relative to the Trident, Patriot, as well as the Miller sprayers. And as Rick mentioned, if you've got some questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A section. Ernie from the tech support group is going to help field those questions. But again, welcome to the webinar. The first thing we want to take a look at today is the engine belt tensioner. We've had reports of the spring tensioner failing. This allows the belt to slip, or it may even allow the belt to come off. And the affected models are noted below. And what we found was due to the increased power of the engine, that the engine belt tensioner was just not capable of withstanding the load of the engine itself. So rather than reinventing the belt tensioner, what we've done is we looked at other engines within the CNH family and found out that there were some belt tensioners that were more durable and more fitted for this application. So we introduced a running change in February of 18 where we actually are using the same belt tensioner that's currently on the Magnum. So if you experience this particular failure, if you note at the very bottom of the screen, that is the current part number of the belt tensioner that's in production today. And because we're having some technical difficulties, you'll be hearing me say change the screen because I lost that ability. But so Rick, go ahead and change the screen. The next thing we're looking at here is the sprayer system will not achieve target rate or pressure. The spray pump has low or no output flow. Basically, it won't spray. Affected models are noted there. But what we found was that there were pressure spikes damaging the check valve. And also what we noted was that the check valve in the motor is redundant, the check valve and the pump control manifold. So what testing has proven is that by removing one of the check valves, which would have been in the pump motor, we were able to correct this issue. So production implemented a new ACE pump without the check valve in the motor, and that was implemented in November of 18. If you want some more information regarding this particular concern, you can reference the knowledge article at the bottom of the page. Next slide. Here, what we got here is there's been several reports of the downstream NOx sensor failing, and this often occurs after starting the unit and moving it, just moving the vehicle. Usually this occurs at idle or just to moderate RPMs, and mainly this affected the Patriot 4440. And what we've noticed during testing was that the presence of water droplets in the exhaust system were accumulating on the tip of the NOx sensor, and what it was causing was this element to crack and eventually fail. So as a containment, what we've done is we reverted back to the engine software version, or VD3, to the VD 2.2. And with this new software, in conjunction with a new exhaust pipe and the relocation of the NOx sensor, this pretty much eliminated this particular concern. There may be a few out there that may not have received this update. There is a current PIP. That PIP number is CO0218, and I believe that is good through June of this year. And if you want some more information on that, there is a knowledge article noted at the bottom of the page. Next slide. What we have here is the dosing injector is not injecting. What it's doing is it's it's not even allowing the system to evacuate. The results are fault code 19817, 19336, and 19077. Affected models are also noted below. And what we found was that crystallized DEF was causing the dosing injector to stick, resulting in low pressure and also low flow. So this dosing injector, when it became a running change in July of 18, so this has been corrected. And if you have to order this dosing injector, the part numbers are also noted at the bottom of this page. Next slide. What we're looking at here is we've got bushing wear at the knee joint, and reports have been that there's been way too many of these joints going unchecked. And what this results in is the actual pin wearing through the bushing, which will get into the suspension arm itself, which could lead to a very expensive repair. And the models primarily affected were the Patriot 4000 series. However, we did see some other models that were affected, those that were having the trailing link suspension system. And this was mainly contributed to maintenance, operational loads, and also the increased duty cycle over the years. And what we've done at the engineering levels, we took this current bushing, ran it through a series of tests, basically wanted to simulate the conditions that were out in the field, and for the most part was able to simulate those conditions and was able to get that bushing to wear. But with new technology that's out there, we did find a bushing that's non-metallic, that's non-greasable, and we've introduced that into the sprayer system or into the sprayer line. And as a containment, what we've done, I should say not even a containment, but what we've done is we implemented the new knee bushing into production as of July of 18. Now keep in mind this is a non-metallic bushing, it's non-greasable. There was a service bulletin that was released back in December of 18 announcing the service, I should say the kit, bushing and pin kit that you need. It does take 4 kits per machine if you got to do all 4 corners. And keep in mind these bushing kits do not have the new seals. But also a part of this, because this is a greaseless bushing, part of that service bulletin is to make sure that there is no grease on these bushing whatsoever, not even during assembly. So you need to make sure that you remove the grease zerk, and if this has an auto grease system on it, that you disconnect that as well. We want these bushings to run completely dry. Next slide. And what we've got here is the suspension control stops responding if the unit is switched to service mode before transfer height is achieved. This only affects the Trident 5550. And what we found was that by engaging the service mode before the unit achieved transport height caused the corruption of the programming. And this was taken care of. There was some training at the plant that we had to go through, but the main thing is we introduced some new software for the ASECU in April of 18 that took care of this issue. There is a knowledge article and also the version of software that took care of this particular concern. Next slide. We've got several reports of the DEF tank failing in one of 2 ways. Either the port at the bottom of the tank was leaking, or we had reports of cracks in the tank itself. The tanks that were cracking were primarily in the regions that were very cold, and the models affected by this particular concern are noted below. But we also noted at the plant, when we found the port cracking, we found that was really due to handling at the plant. And as far as the tanks cracking, that was due to the DEF freezing. So what happened to correct this issue is the supplier introduced a new material that would withstand cold temperatures. And as far as the port, that was changed in production, and also the manner in which these tanks are handled at the plant has also changed. So new material, new handling process, and that all went into effect January of 19. Next slide. And what we've got going here is on the steering arm is actually the bolt was coming loose here. And as it came loose, the cylinder would just hammer the bearings that were installed in this bracket. And as a result, again, it would come loose. You had to replace the bearings. And the only way that we were really able to resolve this one is we changed to a smaller diameter bolt, went to a thicker bushing, which increased the surface area for the load clamp, and also we introduced a retaining lip on the steering arm, and also a slide to the hole which holds the bearing in place. So that we've got this one taken care of, and that's going to be implemented next month in production. Crop shields, and we've seen this failure mainly down in the south, those that run sprayers and cotton. But we received, some reports of low-hour cracking. We've seen these crop shields bend. In the field, we've seen them fall off and bend on the road. Affected models are noted below. But what we really determined was that these crop shields were really under-designed. They weren't robust enough for the operating and load conditions that they were subjected to. And the only way to really correct this one is we are looking at a new design, a more robust crop shield that's going to hold up to the load and conditions that these sprayers are subject to. And for the time being, we had to take this option out of the price book because we don't want customers or dealers ordering these crop shields and having them fail. So right now we are in the process of developing a much more robust crop shield for the sprayers that run in these conditions. And once that's done, we will introduce the crop shield and we'll add it back to the price book. This is kind of an odd one. We've had some sprayers that exhibited a shuddering during operation, and the shuddering symptoms occur and it only lasts for about 3 to 4 seconds, and then the machine will go back to normal. And there was really no specific period of how this and when this shuddering event took place. And what we found was that we're still not fully understood of what, I should say we, in the process of understanding that, but what the best thing and best evidence suggests is that there was a vibration in the drive control circuit that when it was excited, it caused this event to take place. And what we found in looking at some processes, because we didn't have this problem until we decided to clean up the hydraulic plumbing at the plant. And this is an activity that took place back in model year 18. And as a result, there was a lot of hydraulic hoses that were shortened to clean up the hose routing, and also we introduced a new MCV valve. And in order to correct this particular issue, what we had to do is we actually had to go back and some of the hoses that we actually shortened, we had to go back to the original length before we cleaned up the plumbing last year. And so in order to take care of this one, once we've added 3 longer hoses back in, added a new bracket for the MVC valve back in place, this pretty much took care of the shuddering issue. So this was kind of somewhat self-inflicted, trying to clean up the plumbing on the sprayers. But this, as far as fully implementing this at the plant, we're still working on a date. But as far as more information on this concern, there is a knowledge article noted at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please.
Hey, Alan, just said we got a question here. Get down to it. When will the new components be available for the steering part?
I don't have any information on that one. Ernie, any insight on that?
Must have lost Ernie. And then do you know if there's going to be a bulletin on that?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure we're going to see a bulletin on that one. I have not got a release date when that will take place.
Okay.
They're looking to do some better packaging for that before they release the new components into NGPC. So they're having some packaging issues right now, guys.
Oh, okay. Any more questions, Rick?
Nope, that's it for the moment.
Oh, okay. What we got going on there is the axle liner is coming out of the frame tube on the 3000 and 4000 series machines, and it was basically due to the retention or the retainers were failing. And what we found out was that the retention mechanism just weren't robust enough to keep that liner inside the axle tube. But what we...
Hey, Alan, I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back. I dropped out.
Oh, okay, Ernie, thank you. There was a question there. Did you want to pose that question one more time to Ernie before we proceed with this axle liner?
Ernie, they're talking about the new components for the steering, when they were going to be available in a parts catalog, and if there was a bulletin on that.
I haven't heard for sure 100%, but I strongly suspect there will be a bulletin on that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on.
Wait a minute, Alan. Alan, we got a couple more. Is there a plug to install in place of the grease zerk when we do the knee joint suspension update?
From what I understand, in that kit there should be a plug.
Okay.
And
there should be,
I believe there
should be 2 plugs in each. Sorry about that. There should be 2 plugs that come in the kit.
Okay. And then,
and just on a side note, Richter, too, I thought at one point some of the earlier kits that were released may not have had that plug. So if somebody by chance gets an earlier kit, they may not have that plug, and they want to make sure that they plug that hole if there's no plugs in the kit that they receive.
Okay. And then, was there a serial number break when the knee joint bushings went in at the plant? Was that on that slide?
Not on this slide. I think it might have been on some of the internal slides.
Okay. All right. I suppose the way to tell that is if you get one in, if the zerks are gone, then you know you got the new style ones.
Right, exactly.
Yes, and we have had several THDs submitted asking why the zerks were missing, so people are noticing it.
Okay, you ready for the next slide, Alan?
Oh, nope, I'm still working on this one here.
Okay.
But let's get back to the slide here. What we found is as we were designing the Trident combo chassis, we introduced an axle liner in that chassis that was ideal. It worked great. It was a proven design, so we took the Trident design of their axle liner configuration and we actually adapted it to the Patriot. So the new liner configuration was implemented at the plant in September of 18. And as far as I know, there is going to be a service bulletin coming out that's going to outline the hardware and the process to how to install this axle liner on other models that may be affected or have these liners coming out of the axle tubes. Next slide. Loose hardware. We've had several concerns about of loose hardware, and mainly we're seeing loose hardware on the engine mounts, the boom parallel links, as well as the flag pins and walkway mounts. Models affected were noted on the slide there. But what we found was the supplier's quality process just really failed to identify the self-locking nuts that they did not meet specifications. So they left the supplier not meeting spec. And as a containment, working with the supplier to make sure that they remove all suspect hardware out of the supply chain. And while we were in the process of identifying the problem, what we had to do at the plant is we actually installed some wicking thread locker onto the threads as a containment. But the ultimate containment is the supplier providing us with hardware that meets specifications. But if you've got customers out there that for some reason have hardware and you need to correct it, we do have an action plan out there by installing Loctite 290. Again, keep in mind this has a wicking formulation, but this is to be installed after all the hardware has been retightened or retorqued, and then you can apply this wicking Loctite to the hardware, and this should lock those nuts that are in question. Should take care of that. Okay, what we got here is the flag pin on the boom or parallel linkage can work loose, and what we found here is just the current the current bolted joint lacks sufficient clamping force to resist the loads induced on the pin retention hardware. For the most part right here is we've got a pin that didn't meet specifications. It's under review, and there will be a new pin designed, and once it's been released, it will be introduced at the plant as a running change. We've had several concerns, and again, this only affects the Trident 5550, and that's the O-rings leaking at the manifold cavity plugs. And what we found is, although it's not fully understood, but we found out that it appears to be linked and tied to the internal hex plug. We've done some pressure cycle tests and found that the internal hex plug was actually loosening. As it loosens, the O-ring fails and obviously leaks. However, we introduced an external hex plug and subjected it to the same cycle test and found out that hex plug was not leaking. And so what we did as to address this issue is with this manifold, we've removed or eliminated the internal hex and went to an external hex plug. But in order to do this, we had to change the brackets. So if you look up on the slide there, you see the end brackets have holes on those, and that's really to accommodate the new external plugs. In the event of a O-ring leaking, they're easy accessible. Otherwise, you used to have to take this whole thing out of the chassis, which is very time-consuming, and replace the O-rings there. And this has been implemented at the plant. However, there were machines before we had this fixed that at the plant where we actually installed some Loctite on the internal hex plugs. So I believe there is going to be a service bulletin released on this one shortly. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Miller sprayers, but wanted to touch on a few items and a few concerns that have been brought to our attention. The first thing has to do with the performance of the air conditioning. It's been noted that some heater hoses have been connected backwards, and we found that hot water can flow through the water valve and heater core, obviously interfering with the AC cooling capacity. And this was really an assembly error, a training issue at the plant. That has been corrected. So, but if for some reason you've got a customer who's experiencing this issue and you're not quite sure and needs some guidance, there is a knowledge article noted at the bottom of the page there.
Well, we got one other question that just popped in talking about corrupt data on the ISO sprayers. We kind of went over that stuff yesterday somewhat in the AFS presentation, but there are several, there's a whole new software.
It's coming up on a couple of extra slides here. We got that. We'll talk about that here shortly. Yep, toward the end. Okay, on this particular slide here, we got the CAN 2 that goes offline, and typically this was in conjunction when turning on a feature or function, and that presents a heavier draw on the electrical system. And what we found was that this would go away if you shut down the machine and restarted it. So CAN 2 would come back online, and what we found was the grounding between the cab and the chassis was insufficient to prevent voltage differential on the CAN bus between the auto rinse controller and the chassis controller. And so what we did is we added an additional and better grounding into the system. And this, I should say, the corrective action was to add an additional ground cable into production. That went in as of June of 18. So if there's a concern out there and you need more information, there is a knowledge article at the bottom of the slide. Next page. Okay, this one we've got here is we had some Miller sprayers that when you jumped in it, went to go to reverse, it would not move. And what we found was that the drive system configuration for first range speed that was in the chassis armrest display was set to 0. And what we end up having to do is to make sure when these machines left the plant was to make sure that the first range speed was set above 0. So what was happening is if that was set to 0, when you went to shift it, it wouldn't recognize that the machine should move forward. So we had to change that actually at the armrest. And also this was information that was not included in the operator's manual. So we had to provide some feedback to Tech Publications. They are in the process of updating the operator's manual. Any more questions on this or concerns, there is a knowledge article where you can reference. Next page. This one on the steering cylinder failure. We got some reports that the front wheels turned sharply on its own, and after looking closer at this concern, we found out that the steering cylinder basically came apart internally. And this was the findings after talking with the supplier. We found out that their processes were not robust enough to ensure that the cylinders were built correctly. And the final containment was to make sure that any cylinders out there with these date codes were replaced, which, as far as we know, that everything has been updated with the current cylinder. And the final resolution is to make sure the supplier's process is improved and that we're going to incorporate a torquing sequence to make sure the cylinder and rod and piston are assembled correctly. Next slide. We're just going to touch briefly on the software here. Some of the things that, there's a couple other slides in here that the participants can view on their own because there's quite a list of improvements. But I'm just going to skim over the top of this. But we've had some concerns and some as far as some complaints about skips, gaps in the coverage map, gaps while backing in or coming out of corners, discrepancies between swath maps and coverage maps, missed or double spray areas, data imported or exported, as well as display setup configurations. And the displays that effects are noted below. And it basically boils down, we had some problems with our software. We have the Benson product validation team did work with our Burr Ridge software team, and they did come out with software to address these concerns that were noted above. It did come out, the software did come out and was implemented at the plant in December of 18. We do have a knowledge article noted below, but this software is in EST 9000 Update 3. So if you've got those concerns, that software should address it. Next slide. PC2. What we had, and we got some complaints and some concerns about the nozzle control valves that may go offline until the system is powered, power cycle or re-indexing is performed. And what we found is that the symptom can be intermittent and seemingly moves from various NVC positions. And this was quite challenging for the technician that had the diagnosis issue. And what we found on this one was the software tolerance of intermittent NVC and nozzle bus communication faults were not robust as expected. And so the correction here was an implementation of new PC2 software. And again, this was noted in the EST Update 5, which came out in February of 19. If you've got this concern, that version of software should address it. And there's a whole list of notes that have been released. It's quite a list. I won't read through those. Those listening can view those at your convenience when it gets posted to the dealer portal. Next slide.
And Alan, actually on that one, most of these would be contained in that last update that came out in February then, wouldn't it? All these fixes?
That would be correct. Ernie, any thoughts on that? Is that a correct statement?
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. The most current software on your EST will include these fixes or corrections.
Okay. And here what we've got is the ISO auto fold and also auto boom implement delete notices, as well as the VTUT offline notices, and those models affected are noted below there. And what we found was the CAN bus conflicts or exacerbates if the unit is equipped with an auto lens system. So what we did is that production implementation of a new ISO auto fold and ISO auto boom software. So we got new software to address this concern if it's something that your customers are reporting to you. And also the same version was noted below. Here, same thing, we got some notes regarding AutoFold and AutoBoom software. That can be read a little bit further at your own convenience. So next slide. And here's just a list of current PIPs that are out there. We got one getting ready to expire, but that's a list for your reference. You can look at that at your convenience when it gets posted to the dealer portal. And I believe that's going to bring us up to more questions if there's any still out there.
I think we're pretty well caught up on those, it looks like. So we're pretty well through that. If we get more questions as we go on, we'll try to catch them as we go. But I think now we will transition over to the seating segment of today's presentation. So with that, John Volley will be presenting that information. And if you'd like, John, we will start with that.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Valley. Going to be presenting these slides for you today for seating. I've also got some other people online that can help with questions when we come across them. So right now there is no current PIPs going forward on any of the seating products right now. So there's nothing to review there. The 5 Series aircart meter module gate links. Failure of the gate links and or shear pins, engineering has released a one-piece meter gate link, pin and link to replace the previous 2-piece link and shear pin set for all 5 Series aircart. This was primarily something that was resolved last year and late in the season last last spring, there was units. These clips were sent out to dealers for customers' units and for dealer inventory units. This shear pin was too tight in the hole, and the old one would break during installation. Strength at the shear point was undersized. The single pin link can rotate around the shaft axle without damage to the axle link and will reset back into position with the handle rotation. We found a lot of dealers were replacing all these at one time or replacing them as they failed. But all the units were in the Saskatoon yard were updated in August of 18, and since the pins have gone into place, there hasn't been any reports of these links continuing to fail. 5 Series Aircart stair down indicator sensor. The stair would damage the tyre, and track damage results when the stairs are left in the down position while turning. Customers are turning the tractor while the staircase is in the lowered position. A sensor kit and software update has been released that gives the operator both a visual and audible indication the stair is in the down position. Standard feature not on all Model Year 19 carts. There is a whole goods kit available, and the part number is listed on the slide, and a software version update in 1.3 and higher, and the kit must be ordered through Whole Goods. Precision disc drill flow divider breakage. High breakage rate on the flow divider, retaining tabs that supports the secondary hoses. The material was incompatible with the hydrocarbons such as WD-40 contribute to the breakdown of the engineered plastic. Stress at the inlet of the seed hose exceeds the crack propagation limit of the material, verified in lab testing and FEA material analysis. So the containment issue right now is replace bail parts with the new part number, and the part number is listed on the slide. Material changed to resist hydrocarbon and hose connection ends. It was redesigned to provide more positive grip and flexibility, and the running change was made in production on January 7th of this year. There's also a knowledge article available, and the knowledge number is listed at the bottom of the slide. Precision disc drill premature scraper wear. Scrapers are wearing sooner than expected in such a way to cause the opener to plug in the fields. The wear patterns were primarily forward of the current carbide tiles. Carbide replacement was inadequate to protect the part. There has been a new scrapers available, and the new part numbers are listed below. These new scrapers have been available for near on a year now, and the new scrapers that have been in the field are working extremely well and getting a lot more wear life than the previous scrapers. Large hoe drill front wing frame welding cracking. Welds crack at the front of the frame where the trip supports are required for even seat depths. There was found that was undersized welds in the stock units, and engineering plant inspection determined the difficulty in positioning to the weld the area. So the containment, a new design weld plate was implemented in the plant, and the yard stock updating was completed on October 7th, 2018. New weld procedures have been implemented in the plant as the location is difficult to weld at. So the field action wing frames can be inspected for cracking and re-welding according to procedures of the knowledge. So the knowledge number is again listed at the bottom of the slide. Large hoe drill, rock shafts bending or twisting. Rock shafts bend or twist resulting in inaccurate seed placement. Various contributing factors, multiple failure modes. Design is subject to interferences and is susceptible to twisting, and rock shafts move relative to one another out of sequence. There's no containment action right at this time. The action would be to replace fail components as required and to use the adjustable link, part number 875-04255 on the center rock shaft. New service parts can be used to update the bent rock shaft center section. New parts have more clearance and the field flex across the center section. These are part type 7 and will have to be ordered through the plant from an APO. Submit an assist request including pictures prior to any updates. So make sure, guys, that if you do have this failure, submit the pictures and submit it with the assist. 5 Series Aircart pressure sensor alarms. The 5 Series Aircart high rate sensor replacement due to sensor and alarm faults. Testing of returned failed unit sensors found no fault found. Multiple sensors replaced on carts as a precautionary measure. Debris buildup in the meter pressure sensors without Gore vents justified variation between sensors and causing alarms. There's been a corrective action of new software, 1.3 or higher, ensures the system is less sensitive and provides enhanced diagnostics. There's a new part number that includes the Gore vent, which is on the slide. Of the face, the sensors appear to have eliminated debris buildup and does not require cleaning in the event of alarms. There will be a knowledge article to be released with this, and again, experience in the field with these pressure sensors and the Gore vents has been very successful and with the software updates of eliminating these unnecessary alarms going off in the cab. 5 Series air cart meter roll wear. The coarse meter rollers, full length and half width cartridges wear at the divider between the meter segments. The extra clearance from the wear may allow product or debris to jam the meter roller. Abrasive products such as phosphorus fertilizer, ammonium sulfates, and high-rate abrasive fertilizers can accelerate wear on the metering roll ring components. So the containment and corrective action right now is to replace the metering rolls or cartridge, and if they're worn to the point where the metering roll is stalling or is occurring as a result of application rates, may be compromised. Field action, a higher wear roller has been developed that replaces the plastic center and end rings with stainless steel. This will be made available as an option for the specific conditions, and there will be a knowledge released in March of 2019. 5 Series air cart meter venturi module wear. Customers have noticed that with abrasive product that the inlet venturis are wearing prematurely. This wearing can cause the meter module housing to wear and allow product to escape the air system, affecting product rates. Abrasive fertilizer accelerates the issue, high impact at the module inlet due to the steep angle of short venturi. Particle flow analysis has verified wear areas seen in the field. So the containment of deviation in the plan in August 2018 has long venturi stainless steel tubes reduced to 64 millimeters to fit. The field action is to replace short venturis with longer venturis to decrease wear, educate customers on abrasive properties of products and expected issues they can cause on the machine. And there is again a knowledge article at the bottom of the slide. 5 Series air carts, product bridging in the tanks. So it's a design issue inherent to some products with increased humidity levels. Some products can bridge above the meter module opening at the subhopper. This results in inaccurate application rates. So the root cause, the tank shape, multiple meter location configurations, humidity and product flow characteristics unaccounted for in the original design. A new design must improve product flow and not reduce the current performance of the subhopper system. There's no planned containment action at this stage. A project has been expanded to include product leveling in the auxiliary tank and the tank cleanup shutoff. And there is a knowledge article available, and again, it's noted at the bottom of the slide. The precision disc drill down pressure circuit failures. The precision disc drill down pressure system not maintaining achieving selected pressure, replacing valves, sensors, valve blocks, resumes function. So the root cause and validation, analysis of contamination debris was showing soil and other debris from not cleaning hydraulic connectors properly causes wear in the down pressure hydraulic valve. Valve components continue to be analysed as returned. A pre-filter for the valve is being targeted for parts in model year 2020 production, and their field action check, diagnose down pressure circuit operation, clean and flush and replace components as required, and there is a knowledge article again at the bottom of the slide. Precision disc drill lower link pin seizing. The lower link pins are seizing, causing the low row unit. Causing the row unit not being free to travel up and down with the contour of the land affecting seed placement. So there's an incompatibility between the zinc coating on the pin and the oil impregnated bushings. The zinc wears off the pin and the blocks and the oil transfer form an oil impregnated in the bushing. Lab tests have shown zinc plating of the pin contaminates the surface area of the bushing. So the selection of materials and process for performance and cost alignment, and the removal and replacement of the seized pins to ensure the cleaning of the area. So there's a knowledge article listed at the bottom. Just a second, let me clear my throat. Sorry about that. So removing and cleaning of those pins will help ensure that it won't happen again in the near future. Large hoe drills, rear frames cracking. The cross member between the third and fourth bar of the rear frame flexes, causing the welds at both ends of the crossbar to fail. Analysis confirms its two ends are experiencing stress, but within the acceptable limit. A test unit was fitted with strain gauges, and a few scenarios run in the field. The results do not indicate anything beyond acceptable limits. So the containment corrective action. Quality has added an inspection gate to inspect the welds when manufacturing. Parts are a part type 7 and are not stock, so should be a BDA order if the customer is working in the field and the unit is down. A brace kit has been added to production. Frames can be re-welded to keep the customer working. The parts, as I said before, are type 7 and not stock. A BDA order is required if the customer is still working in the form. A brace kit will be available February of 19, as a knowledge article at the bottom of the slide. Large hoe drill opener running gear interference. Openers contact tyres when raised during headland cycle and when lifted for transition into transport. Trip placement causes opener interference with the wheel when doing headland turns. A secondary cause of increased length of openers on third-party knives has been validated from customers in the field. System interference does not occur in all configurations. Stud kit in development to move the trips rearward from the tyre location, and that is expected to be done in March of 19. What we're asked to do is limit the headland lift when headland hydraulic circuit and/or setting hydraulic timers on tractors. A field fix is due to, not 100%, field fix due to the trash clearance issues. There is a knowledge article again at the bottom of the slide.
There's one question on sprayers I'm going to take a stab at. Is there anything in the works for the 3000 series engine oil pickup tube? Nothing that I'm aware of right now. We didn't have anything in the engine presentation earlier in the week, and I know in the sprayer one there wasn't anything. So I know the issue's been notated and is out there, but I don't know of any corrective action at the moment for that one. All right, and then we got one for you, John, on on seeders. Back down here.
Yeah, on 500T, even with the rain guard on it, the water will still get into the meter housing, causing product to bleach. Is there a better option to keep the meter box dry? Are you aware of anything, Brian Willett?
That question came back from Brian Schaefer's. Brian, if I can try and get back to you on that one. If you can just let me know what deals you try at, please, Brian.
Now here we've got some software ones yet in the end there, John, if you want to run through them on the backup.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got some software changes to the air carts, and what we've been able to do is do a single meter cal backwards compatible for all all 5 series air cart, and the update is in 1.3 or higher. So again, there's a large disc drill. There's been a new unfold software. Prior software was difficult for customers to use, and alarm faults and sensors diagnostics was confusing. The software version 2.0 for frame control remote has been released. New software has a better GUI and allows the customer to bypass the alarms with a visual check and acknowledgement of the state of the display. So the update ECU will come with version 2.0 software.
Okay. Well, I think that gets us pretty much through everything for this particular segment. I would like to thank John and Alan for presenting, and Ernie and Brian for supporting it. So with this, we'll wrap this segment up. Thanks, everyone, for calling in, and have a good rest of your day.